just gulp? No. I heard a gulp. Well, a little
India
bit.
and China are two of the world's largest and fastest growing economies. Both countries have experienced tremendous economic growth over the past few decades, and both have made significant strides in lifting millions of people out of poverty. But which of these two economies is stronger? Is India's economy stronger than China's, or vice versa? To answer this question, we need to consider several key factors that contribute to the strength of an economy. These include economic growth, industrial production, trade and exports, and the standard of living of the population. Let's take a closer look at each of these factors to see how India and China compare. First, let's consider economic growth. This refers to the rate at which an economy is expanding, as measured by the increase in the value of all goods and services produced within a country. Over the past few decades, both India and China have experienced rapid economic growth. However, China's growth has been consistently higher than India's. Between 1980 and 2019, China's economy grew by an average of 9.5% per year, while India's economy grew by an average of 6.5% per year. This difference is significant, and it reflects the fact that China's economy has been growing at a faster pace than India's. Next, let's consider industrial production. This refers to the output of factories, mines, and other industrial facilities. Industrial production is a key indicator of an economy's strength, as it reflects the level of manufacturing activity and the level of technological development in a country. Again, China has outperformed India in this area. China's industrial production has consistently been higher than India's, and it has also grown at a faster rate. In 2019, China's industrial production was nearly twice as high as India's, at $2.9 trillion compared to $1.5 trillion. Another important factor to consider is trade and exports. Countries that are able to export large quantities of goods and services to other countries are typically seen as having stronger economies. In this regard, China has a clear advantage over India. China is the world's largest exporter, with exports totaling $2.6 trillion in 2019. India, on the other hand, ranked only as the 19th largest exporter, with exports totaling $332 billion in 2019. China's exports are also more diversified, with a wider range of products and services being exported to a greater number of countries. India's exports are more concentrated in a few sectors, such as textiles and clothing, and are largely focused on a smaller number of countries. Finally, we need to consider the standard of living of the population. This refers to the overall quality of life that people in a country experience, including factors such as income, education, healthcare, and access to basic necessities like food, shelter, and clean water. In this regard, China has made great progress in improving the standard of living for its people. Between 1990 and 2019, China lifted 850 million people out of poverty, and it now has a middle-class population of around 400 million. India, on the other hand, has made slower progress in reducing poverty and improving the standard of living for its people. In 2019, around 27% of India's population lived in poverty, compared to just 4% in China. So, based on these key indicators, it seems that China's economy is stronger than India's. China has experienced faster economic growth, higher industrial production, and more successful trade and exports. It has also made greater progress in improving the standard of living for its people. However, it's worth noting that India's economy is still growing rapidly, and it has the potential to catch up to China in the future. India is a country of over 1.3 billion people and the world's fastest growing major economy. In recent years, India's economic growth has been impressive, with GDP growth rates consistently above 6%. This has led many to wonder, does India have a strong economy? body. To answer this question, it is important to examine various economic indicators such as GDP, inflation, unemployment, and trade. First, let's look at GDP, which is a measure of a country's economic output. India's GDP has been steadily increasing in recent years, with a growth rate of 7.5% in 2015, 7.1% in 2016, and 6.7% in 2017. This makes India one of the fastest growing major economies in the world. However, it is worth noting that India's GDP per capita, which is a measure of the average income of its citizens, is still relatively low compared to other developed countries. In 2017, India's GDP per capita was just $1,940, compared to $59,531 in the United States. This suggests that while India's economy is growing, it still has a long way to go in terms of improving the standard of living for its citizens. Next, let's consider inflation, which is the rate at which prices for goods and services increase over time. Inflation in India has been relatively low in recent years, hovering around 4% in 2017. This is good news for the economy, as high inflation can lead to economic instability and discourage foreign investment. Unemployment is another important indicator of a country's economic health. In India, unemployment has been a persistent problem, with the unemployment rate hovering around 5% in 2017. While this may seem low compared to other countries, it is worth noting that India has a large informal sector, which means that many people are self-employed or work in informal jobs that are not captured in official unemployment statistics. Finally, let's examine India's trade. India is a major player in the global economy, with exports totaling $292 billion in 2017. India's top exports include textiles, petroleum products, and pharmaceuticals. However, India also has a large trade deficit, which means it imports more goods and services than it exports. In 2017, India's trade deficit was $137 billion. Conclusion? Overall, it is clear that India has a strong and growing economy. Its GDP growth rates are among the highest in the world, and inflation and unemployment are relatively low. However, there are also challenges that India must address, such as its low GDP per capita and large trade deficit. With continued economic reforms and development, it is likely that India will continue to grow and become an even stronger economic power in the future. China's economy has seen tremendous growth over the past few decades, becoming a major player on the global stage. But just how strong is China's economy? To answer this question, we must first consider the size of China's economy. According to the World Bank, China's gross domestic product, GDP, was $14.2 trillion in 2018, making it the second largest economy in the world behind the United States. In terms of purchasing power parity, PPP, which measures the purchasing power of a country's currency, China's economy was even larger, coming in at $27.3 trillion, making it the largest economy in the world. However, size alone does not determine the strength of an economy. To truly assess the strength of China's economy, we must also consider other factors such as its economic growth, employment, and trade. One key indicator of an economy's strength is its rate of economic growth. China has consistently had high rates of economic growth in recent years, with an annual average growth rate of around 6% over the past decade. This growth has been fueled by a combination of factors including increased exports, rising domestic consumption, and increased investment in infrastructure and manufacturing. China's economic growth has not only benefited the country's citizens, but also the global economy as a whole. As a major exporter, China's economic growth has helped to drive global trade, with the country exporting $2.6 trillion worth of goods in 2018.